Hello and welcome. This session is titled The Art and Skill of Listening. Now, let's be clear, I am no expert at listening. I have made many mistakes when listening over the years, and part of this session is I'm trying to share some of my experience with you so you don't make the same mistakes I have made over the years. Now, there's going to be a lot to pack into this session, so unfortunately, you may find we go rather quick in some places. For me, listening is a superpower. It may not sound like it, and it may not seem like something that makes a significant difference to people's lives, but it can help with conflicts, fights with people. It helps you to progress your key career and get a job. It makes other people feel valued. Maybe a question is worthwhile asking. Have you ever had a revelation while speaking to someone and they're listening to you? And suddenly things become so much clearer. Those are the kind of things I mean by listening as a superpower. Maybe you remember as a child, your grandparents would stop and listen to you. You wouldn't be dismissed as just, another child, but they would actually listen to what you were saying, to try and understand what you're saying. Do you remember feeling valued when your grandparents listened to you because they had time? Or what about when a friend just listens to you? No judgment, no thoughts, just two people the same with the same shared values. That's listening. There's a fantastic program here in the United Kingdom called The Listening Project. It's on Radio 4. It's a very simple format, just records two people talking. And the byline is, it's surprising what you hear when you listen. And time again in the programs, just because two people, there are no distractions, there's nothing outside, they're just talking to each other and hearing what each other is saying, that they suddenly discover so much more. Now, we can be taught technical skills. We can learn how to create a database. We can learn how to write good queries. We can learn machine learning. But soft skills are also something we can learn. It's something you can study and you can learn as well. And that's what I hope to do in this session, to try and give you some skills and practical tips. This is a boring bit, I'm afraid. I need to introduce myself. My name is Robert French. I work with a company called iAcademy in sunny Glasgow. These are my contact details. I love talking about data, but I also love talking about soft skills. If you want to get in touch, please do. I love talking about this kind of thing, believe it or not. There are two topics I'm going to cover in this very short 20-minute session. The first one is why. I think it's important to say, why should you listen? Without having a why, there's no reason why you should listen. And I want to cover that off first of all. Then the next part of our session will be practical tips on how to listen. I think there are actually certain practical things you can do to help you listen. Okay, let's start off with the why. Why should we listen to other people? Why is it worth our time and effort? Hopefully, like me, you're also a developer. So you spend time with customers, listening to customers. Very often you have to understand what they're looking for, maybe develop a software specification, or understand what their challenge or problem is. Is it not better to get it right first time, to ask the right questions, to listen carefully to what they're actually saying, as opposed to what we think they're saying? We don't write sloppy code. So why should we write sloppy software specifications or misunderstand what the client is trying to tell us? So this is a good reason I think we should practice our listening skills to help us develop professionally. As a consultant, I am very aware that companies do not buy necessarily, first of all, my technical skills. They buy me. They buy my company and the people that work for that company. At a recent client meeting, one of the things I was very aware of, that I was there to build a relationship with that company and build a relationship with the client. So later on, they would trust my technical judgment and they would trust my recommendations. If we listen to people when we're having fights or in conflicts, suddenly we can stop them dead in their tracks if we can listen. It's not easy, but it's possible. And when I'm talking about listening, there's several types of listening. The one I'm not talking about today is if you're on public transport or you're in a crowded room. Your focus may be on your phone or your Twitter feed, your Facebook feed, and you're hearing words all around you, but you're not actually listening to them. That's passive listening, which is okay in that context or that particular situation. But what I'm talking about is active listening. Active listening is when you have to engage with the person you're listening to and actively listen to them. And one of the great things is that women are very good at this. But we can all be good at listening. Okay. So next, how to listen. I want to talk about various practical tips you can use for practicing your listening. First of all, let's be clear, this is a buffet, a smorgasbord, a sharing of ideas. None of these are absolute rules that you have to follow. Hopefully you'll find something that speaks to you and you'll be able to use that and take it forward. And listening requires certain practical steps. A bit like many chefs follow a recipe when they're making a fantastic meal. There are certain steps they will take. And there are certain practical things we need to do in order to actively listen. I want to talk about them because you can listen. You are more than capable of it. I know you are. You have so much potential here. And the first thing about listening is to stop. Stop what you're doing. If you want to actively listen to someone, you have to stop what you're doing and give them your full attention. Not a bit, all of it. The other thing that's sometimes quite hard when you look at this picture, maybe for example, is not to prejudge someone. This is John and his dad. They run a company. You may look at John, the young gentleman, and you think, oh, he runs a company? His company turns over several $1 million. It's called John's Crazy Socks. His dad asked him, what would you like to do when you left school? And he said, I would like to sell socks. There's a longer story to it. But if you just look at someone, you may make a judgment. Be open-minded about who you're speaking to and don't make that judgment. It's difficult. I don't disagree with it, but just listen to that person. And this is something I have to do every time I'm listening to someone. To focus on, I'm not letting my mind wander onto what am I going to have for tea, what my commute home going to be like, or what's the next problem I'm going to be dealing with. But focus on that person, completely focus on them. Try not guess the next thing that someone's going to say, because you've no idea what they're going to say. Allow them to speak, allow them to formulate the words. Don't guide them, let them speak. And sometimes that means you have to remain quiet. There are no absolute rules for listening to someone. There's no form they should follow. You have to be guided and let the conversation develop. And very often one of the things that I try and do when I'm speaking to someone is to try and suggest things. They may ask me questions. But if at all possible, just listen to them and try and avoid suggesting. Your job is there just to hear the words, not necessarily to guide or to give them things to do. Maybe also think about where you're physically positioned. Sometimes when someone's sitting down and you're standing next to them, it can be quite intimidating if you're looking down upon them. So get onto their level. And particularly maybe with children, if children are on the floor and you're listening to them, get down to their level so that you're showing them you're on the same position as them. We've already said it about being open-minded and non-judgmental. And what do I mean by that? Appearances can be sometimes what I describe as deceptive, maybe not lead you to the right conclusion. I remember watching a documentary with Billy Connolly once, and he was speaking to the camera crew who was following him. I was a gentleman who, by his appearance, you may describe as a down and out. But yet very quickly, Billy Connolly developed a conversation with him. And the gentleman he was speaking to, even though he may look somewhat dishevelled and possibly not the kind of gentleman who may express such things, but a passion and fascination for Shakespeare's plays. It's all too easy to judge someone. I remember the story being told to me for a company we were working with, Robert Wiseman Dairies. And the person went to the headquarters, and it's the first time they'd been there, and they got out, and someone was out in their boiler suit mowing the lawn outside the main headquarters. And they passed by them. Turned out the gentleman that was mowing the lawn in the full boiler suit was the chief executive of the organisation. Robert Wiseman Dairies, when it was sold to Muller, sold for £279 million and provided at that point 30% of Britain's milk. But yet if you went by appearances, the chief executive was no more higher than the janitor looking after the grass outside. He was a farmer, he was comfortable, but appearances don't always tell the whole story, so remain open-minded. And when you're speaking to someone, focus on them. Give your entire attention to them, to that person. It's not easy, I agree. But focus on them, not your phone, not your watch, not what's outside the window, but on that person you're listening to. And if at all possible, give them eye contact. Sometimes that's not easy, but I assure you, when you give someone eye contact, it makes them feel valued, and they can see it. They can see it when you give them eye contact. You can even feel it yourself. When someone gives you eye contact, you know they are listening to you because they're making that eye contact directly with you. But also by the same token, people know how it feels when you don't make eye contact. I feel so sorry for the doggo in this picture, but the cat's not making eye contact. And that doesn't make us feel valuable if we don't make eye contact. And yes, sometimes it's hard. It's not easy. And sometimes people feel stared at, so be careful about making eye contact as well. It's a balancing act. It's not easy. One of the things I like to do when I'm listening to people is if I have my phone nearby, I will take my phone and I'll put it face down so that people are aware that my focus is on them, not my phone. And when you listen to people, just nod gently once every so often, not like a nodding dog, but it encourages people to speak. They can see you're listening and it encourages them. That's part of it, listening to someone, to encourage the conversation. And smile. If it's appropriate, sometimes in certain conversations, depending on the topic, it may not be appropriate. But if you smile, people will smile back. See? It's happening. You're smiling back at me because you can see I'm smiling to you. It happens. It's lovely. It's fantastic. I remember this phrase from many, many years ago, very, very simply, and it says we were born with 2 ears and 1 mouth. And I never really thought about it for many years as to what it meant and why it's so important. But I always try to keep it in my mind. And when I was doing research for this part of the presentation, I was thinking about it. And I was doing some searching on the internet. And I found an article about salespeople. Now, obviously, I'm sure we both feel the same way about salespeople. All they do is talk, 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 talk. That's what they do. And that's very much how I felt about salespeople. But this particular article turned my understanding completely around. Because this article reminded me of what I call the golden ratio, which I'll share in a moment. Because what this said was the salespeople that listened the most sold the most. The salespeople that listened the least sold the least. And remind me of the golden ratio. And the golden ratio, as I was told it was, you should listen twice as much as you talk. And when you're listening to people, listen to the words that are being said. In particular, what words are they using? How are those words put together? What words are put side by side? What sentences are used? Listen to the individual words. What descriptions are they using? Try and understand what's been said, but sometimes also what's not been said and how it's been said. One thing that's also very good when you're listening is to ask questions. Gently, yes. If you don't understand something, maybe say, why did that make you feel that way? What happened? Where did it happen? When did that happen? How did it happen? Who was involved? Ask gently. It's not a police interrogation. You're not there to gather all the facts to present a case. And it's often good to say to someone, can I repeat back to you what I think I have heard? Because it shows you are listening if you ask questions. The speed of conversations is quite important. Are they really excited about that goal was scored in the dying minutes of the game and he won? Or do they find it hard to say the next thing? The speed of a conversation and the words that are said will depend on how the person is feeling, and that will give you an indication of what they're feeling. Also, how are words said? What emphasis is used? If I use this phrase, different emphasis on different words will mean different things. I did not say he borrowed my book. I didn't 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 say he borrowed my book. Different words, different emphasis, different meanings. Much of what we say can sometimes go by. Body language is also important to be aware of it. In context, this could mean to be silent or keep quiet. If someone doesn't make eye contact, are they nervous? Do they have something to hide? People on the autistic spectrum find it hard to maintain eye contact. If someone's crossed their arms, are they angry? Are they being defensive? If someone looks away and makes eye contact with their cheek, maybe it means they're thinking what we're going to say next. Don't be afraid of silence. Silence can be good. Silence can allow people to say what they're thinking. Practice every day you're listening. Because this difficult roads lead to beautiful destinations. I want to leave you one thought. To make a difference in someone's life, you don't have to be brilliant, rich, beautiful, or perfect. You just have to care enough to be there. I have been Robert French. I love speaking about this, and I would love to speak to you again. I hope you got something from this session, and hopefully you'll practice your listening skills and put it into practice. And I look forward to hearing how it's made a difference to your life. Thank you very much for watching.